Hello, everyone. We need to take your background of genetics and now we need to apply it to something called a pedigree chart. And this is going to be the discussion of how alleles are passed through a family. So we're going to add this information to your Cornell notes. This will be the next to last segment that you will add to your notebook for this unit. So a pedigree chart, what is it? It's a diagram. And it's a diagram that shows or illustrates the genetic history of a family. Again, people do this for work. They're called genetic counselors, and they help families with how detrimental or harmful alleles like cystic fibrosis, sickle cell anemia, hemophilia, how they're passed through the family. And then based on that information, people can make reproductive decisions as to whether or not they want to have children, or possibly they should not have biological children and they should adopt if they want to have a family. So we need to create this diagram. Now, the diagram, of course, is of males and females. So the way that you designate a male in a pedigree chart is with a square, okay? But there's three choices for the male. If he's healthy, then the square is empty. Whereas if he's affected, then you color the square in. So this is an affected male. Now, if he's a carrier or a heterozygote, you will see pedigrees where they fill in half of the square, like such. So that tells you that he's a carrier male. Okay, females. Females use the same shading or non-shading, except for females, we use circles, like such. So this would then be a typical female. Whereas if you shade it in, that is an affected female. Whereas if you only shade in half, that's your carrier or your heterozygous female. Okay? So you have three choices for males and females. And then if it's a female, it's a circle. And if it's a male, it's a square. So let's create a pedigree chart, and we'll do this one together. Please include it in your notes, and we will ask you to turn in your notebook here in a couple of weeks as a series of PDFs. And what I'm going to ask you to do for your homework for this week is you're going to create two pedigree charts. So let's create a pedigree chart together, and let's get it into your Cornell notes for practice. So let's tackle cystic fibrosis. Cystic fibrosis is an autosomal condition. Autosomal meaning it's carried on one of the chromosomes 1 through 22. This one is actually carried on chromosome number 7. Okay, so it's autosomal because it's carried on number 7, and it's an autosomal recessive condition, which means that your lowercase f is your allele for cystic fibrosis. Whereas your capital then, this individual is healthy. So let's take a female and a male. Okay, whether they're married or not is none of our business. We're biologists. So you have a male and a female, and they produce children. So how you show their children is like such. So here's one generation, here's the next generation. And let's say that they have, let's say 3 children. And so they have, let's say, a girl first and a girl second, and let's make a male third. Okay? And let's say that the first daughter, let's say their first daughter is affected by cystic fibrosis. So there's your affected female. Their second daughter is not, and their third child, a son, is also not affected. All right, when she's of reproductive age, this female then reproduces with a male. And let's give them 4 children. Why not? And let's do girl, boy, girl, boy. Again, since this is an autosomal condition, The sex of the offspring doesn't matter because this is not sex-linked, it's autosomal. And let's say that their first 3 children are healthy, but the male, their 4th child, their son, is affected. So here's your 1st generation, your 2nd generation, and your 3rd generation. And let's say that this gentleman over here reproduces also. And since everybody else has had 3 or 4, let's have them only have 2. And daughter first and son second. And now let's make the son affected again. There you go, there's a pedigree. Okay, so now let's go back and now that we know the phenotype, their physical appearance, they're males and females, they're healthy or they're affected with cystic fibrosis. Now let's go back and determine their genotype. Okay, so anyone who is healthy carries and expresses the dominant F. So what you have here is a healthy parent and a healthy parent. So you know both parents here have the dominant healthy allele. Okay, but a classic example that you see in hospitals all the time is you have a healthy parent, and she gives birth to a sick child. Whoa, where'd that come from? Well, you now know with your background in genetics that means both of your parents are carriers. Okay, they're heterozygotes. They appear healthy, but they're carrying a detrimental allele. So, but you didn't know that they were carriers if you look at just the parents by themselves. You have to look at their children to determine their genotype. So their child here, then, since she is sick with cystic fibrosis, she is little f, little f. Well, these are her 2 alleles, each carried on a chromosome. This is a homologous pair. Well, where did we get our homologous pairs? We got 1 from each biological parent. So that means then that this parent carries a little f and this parent carries a little f, and they passed it on to their daughter like such. Okay? You don't know their genotype until you look at their children. All right, we'll ignore him for right now because we're looking at their biological children. All right, so let's look at their 2nd child. Happens to be a daughter. Okay, it's an empty circle, so that means that she is healthy. So that means it's an uppercase F, dominant F. She's healthy. Well, we don't know her 2nd allele. She could have picked up the detrimental allele from either parent, or maybe she's homozygous dominant and she's big F, big F. We don't know, and unless we do a genetic screen or she has children, we will never know, or we may never know, what her genetic or her genotype is. All right, so let's take a look at their brother here. Again, he's healthy. Since he's healthy, he's big F. At this point, we don't know his other allele, okay? Well, you know his other allele if you take a look down here, but we'll be there in just a minute. So let's go back to the 1st daughter. A sick daughter reproduces with a healthy male, and they produce 3 children, okay? Their first 3 children are healthy. Since their first 3 children are healthy, we know that all of them carry and express the dominant F, the big F. That's why they're healthy, right? But what's their 2nd allele? They're healthy, so is it big F, or is it healthy, or is it little f? Which is it? Well, what you have to do is you look at their mom. Their mom is going to give them one of these 2 alleles. She has no choice genetically. This is where the genetic counseling comes in. She has no choice but to pass this on to her offspring. So therefore, all of her children receive the little f from mom. She has no choice. That's all she has to offer. But then they have a sick child. Well, the sick child then is little f, of course, because he suffers from cystic fibrosis. But hold it. Where did this child come from? Well, now you go back to his biological father. His biological father is healthy, but this little f right here tells you that the biological father carries. So originally, we didn't know what he was. We knew he was big F, but we didn't know his 2nd allele. But as soon as a healthy individual gives rise to a sick child, that tells you that the parent is a carrier. Okay, so Dawn and I are healthy. Had Emily been born with a detrimental allele that was recessive, and she expressed it, that means that both Dawn and I are carriers, even though we don't express it. Okay, so let's go over to these two. So she's healthy. Big F, we don't know her other allele. Two healthy parents have a healthy daughter. Okay, so since she is healthy, she's big F. We don't know her second allele, nor will we ever. So there's no difference between this individual and this individual. We'd have to give them a genetic screen or wait for them to have children. And even then, the children may or may not tell us what their genotype is. Sometimes the children do, sometimes they don't. All right, so let's take a look at her brother. So her brother has cystic fibrosis. Therefore, his genotype is little f, little f. Well, if he's little f, where did he get these two alleles? From, of course, his biological parents. So then this feeds back to here, and this feeds back to here, and the parents, therefore, are both carriers. So there's no difference between this cross here and the cross that we started with the parent here. Excuse me, with the parents here, where you have two healthy parents and a sick child. Same example here, two healthy parents and a sick child. So what I'm going to ask you to do on your homework is I'm going to ask you to create your own, create an autosomal pedigree. Now, go back to your genetics problems. You have multiple things to choose from. You can do cystic fibrosis, you can do sickle cell anemia, there's multiple choices. So go through your genetics problems and find a condition that catches your attention that's autosomal. We will do a sex-linked pedigree separate, okay? So for your homework, create an autosomal pedigree, make it 3 generations. If you want to do it more, that's fine, okay? It's not like there's extra credit for it. Do a minimum of 3. And you say, well, what do you mean by 3 generations? Well, you have your P generation here, your parental generation. Then filial in Latin means offspring or child. So this is your first filial, or what's referred to as your F1. And then this is your F2. And it's just coincidence that I used cystic fibrosis and the F here. These Fs aren't necessarily linked, okay? And then after you create this pedigree, what you'll do is you will go back and you will identify each person. Now, whether you call them A, B, C, D, E, F, G, whether you call them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you could do Roman numerals, Roman numeral 1, Roman numeral 2, Roman numeral 3, Roman numeral 4. I have no preference. But what you will do is down here, you will make a list. So let's say, let's use Roman numerals. So here's Roman numeral 1, go left to right. Roman numeral 1, Roman numeral 2. And then here's number 3. And here's number 4. And here's number 5. Here's individual number 6. Individual number 7. Right? So then for mine, it would be 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. Fine. Then go down here and give me a list about each individual. All right? Tell me about their phenotype and their genotype. So this individual, okay, my Roman numeral number 1, that's a female. She is healthy. And then give me her genotype. She is big F, little f, like such. And then you go Roman numeral 2. You go over here. He is male. He is also healthy. And he is also big F, little f. Then come back here, Roman numeral 3, and so on. Okay, so go left to right in the P generation, then go left to right in the F1 generation, then go left to right in the F2 generation. And if you go on to F3 or even F4, it's totally up to you. Be creative, all right? Don't copy my format that it has to be 3 children and 4 children and 2 children. Make this different, all right? Don't make everybody healthy and don't make everybody sick. Be creative, have some fun with this. I know it's serious because this is a detrimental condition, right? And it's harmful, but still, take your genetics background and apply it and create an autosomal pedigree. And then by the end of the week, take a picture of this or scan it and change it to a PDF and we'll post it by Friday. If you have any questions, let me know.